Welcome to Citizens ETV. Today's topic: is there life after death? Is there an afterlife, or is this the only life we get? Most believe science says there is no afterlife. But this video, while common, is wrong. It required thousands of years of careful study of the natural world. Today, modern science offers answers to this age-old mystery. Humanity has long sought answers to the question of immortality. Contrary to popular wisdom, the existence of an afterlife is an inescapable conclusion of many of today's scientific theories. In this video, we will review 10 scientific theories that predict an afterlife. These theories come from diverse fields of science. They include cornerstone theories of physics such as quantum mechanics and special relativity, as well as theories fundamental to the fields of cosmology, biology, neuroscience, and technology. We will review these theories and see what they imply for the afterlife. You will see why rational, evidence-based scientists were brought to the conclusion that there is life after death. By the end of this video, you will share in their understanding. You will know what we can expect of the afterlife if our modern scientific theories are true. Testable and untestable predictions. In science, theories often make predictions that can't be tested. For example, the theory for why stars shine predicts that right now a photon is leaving from the far side of the sun. We can never test this prediction. Light leaving the far side of the sun can never be proven to exist by anyone on Earth. This photon is moving away from us at the speed of light. We can never catch up to it. Absent the existence of a mirror in the right place at the right time to reflect it back, this photon will remain forever beyond our light cone and therefore inaccessible to us. Nonetheless, the existence of this photon is a prediction that follows from an established theory. Accordingly, our confidence in this photon's existence remains as high as our confidence in the theory. Therefore, a scientist who believes in the theory will believe in the existence of this photon, despite our total inability to ever see it. Theories usually make many predictions, represented by arrows. Some predictions are testable, others are not. Generally, only a small subset of a theory's testable predictions are ever tested. Some predictions of a theory are testable, others aren't. Though we can't test all predictions of a theory, our confidence in a theory increases as we test and confirm more of a theory's predictions. Each successful test builds our confidence in the theory. As the confidence grows, so too does our confidence in all the predictions of the theory. This includes predictions we haven't yet tested, as well as the predictions which aren't testable. Each time we drop something and see it fall, we perform another test of the theory of gravity. This theory predicts a 1-ton diamond would fall if dropped. Though we have never encountered a 1-ton diamond to test this prediction, we are confident in the theory of gravity. Therefore, we are confident that 1-ton diamonds fall when dropped. We can be very confident in untested predictions. This is the situation for afterlife predictions. Predictions of an afterlife represent the untestable predictions of otherwise testable theories. Theories predicting life after death. Short of dying and experiencing the afterlife for yourself, science has no way to directly test the existence or absence of an afterlife. Nonetheless, just as gravity predicts 1-ton diamonds to fall, several theories in science tell us that life continues after death. The existence of an afterlife, though untestable, is a prediction of well-tested, well-established, and well-accepted theories. Accordingly, our confidence in the existence of afterlife should be as high as our confidence in the theories predicting it. Theories and predictions. The following are some of the theories predicting an afterlife. These are not obscure theories, but theories taken seriously and used by working scientists in their fields. Some of these theories even rank among the most strongly confirmed theories in all of science. Theory prediction for afterlife. 1. Cosmic inflation means you will live again. 2. Mechanism means you will reincarnate. 3. Concordance model means you have infinite incarnations. 4. Quantum mechanics means you are subjectively immortal. 5. Special relativity means you have an eternal existence. 6. Biological immortality means you can be made immortal. 7. Simulation hypothesis means you are already immortal. 8. Technological singularity means you will be resurrected. 9. Transcension hypothesis means you are part of a godlike mind. 10. Open individualism means you live wherever there is life. For there to be no afterlife, all of these theories must be wrong. If just one of these theories is right, then this life will not be your last. Let's review each of these theories in detail. We will see what each theory is about, what it explains, who originated it, why scientists believe it, and what it can tell us about the life after this one. Cosmic inflation and the afterlife. Afterlife prediction, you will live again. Cosmic inflation is a theory in cosmology that fills gaps in our understanding of the Big Bang. It was independently conceived by Alexei Starobinsky in 1979 and Alan Guth in 1980, with early kinks being worked out in the following years by Andrea Lind, Paul Steinhardt, and Andy Albrecht. It explains why space is so big, why the universe was so hot and dense in its early history, and why space is still expanding. Today, inflation is a well-supported theory having direct observational evidence. Inflation is now considered part of the standard description of the origins of the universe, as depicted in this diagram by NASA. Cosmic inflation makes a prediction that, so far, remains untested. The process that caused our Big Bang never stopped, and it will continue creating new ones for all time. This idea is known as eternal inflation. A diagram of eternal inflation. Eternal inflation leads to a multiverse, a reality populated by an infinite number of Big Bangs, with new Big Bangs occurring forever. This consequence is acknowledged by the originators of the theory. Alan Guth says,
"Most important of all is the simple statement that once inflation happens, it produces not just one universe, but an infinite number of universes."
Andrea Lind says,
"Every experiment that brings better credence to inflationary theory brings us much closer to hints that the multiverse is real."
If this idea is right, if the multiverse of eternal inflation is real, then it has profound implications for the afterlife. Cosmic inflation's predictions for the afterlife. If eternal inflation is right, then our Big Bang is just one among an infinite succession of Big Bangs. Given that, even rare happenings, such as the entire history of life on Earth, is bound to repeat, it will repeat not just once or twice, but an infinite number of times. These other lives you will live will occur in another place and time, very far away, and possibly very far in the future, but they will happen. Alan Guth added to this,
"In an eternally inflating universe, anything that can happen will happen. In fact, it will happen an infinite number of times."
Describing inflation, Alan Guth once said, "The universe may be the ultimate free lunch." Lind added to this,
"The inflationary universe is not just the ultimate free lunch, it's the only lunch where all possible dishes are served."
Every possible history of Earth, from large changes, where, say, mammals never evolved, down to the smallest, such as a different choice for dinner, happened in the immensity of eternal inflation. So you will not only relive your life exactly as you have thus far, but in the infinitude of possibility, you will experience every variation. That life where you took the other job, moved to the other city, where you went out to eat instead of staying in 2 nights ago, all of them happened, have happened, and will happen again. The Ouroboros is an ancient symbol for eternal cycles of birth, life, death, and rebirth. Cosmic inflation implies our universe, and those in it, are subject to a similar cycle. The idea of a cyclic reality is ancient. It's been described in the writings of ancient Egyptians and Mayans, by early Indian and Greek philosophers, even in the Old Testament of Abrahamic religions.
What has happened before will happen again. What has been done before will be done again. There is nothing new in the whole world. Look, they say, here is something new. But no, it has all happened before, long before we were born. Ecclesiastes 1.9.10.
According to eternal inflation, after you die you will be born again. You will live again. It may take 1,000 years, or 100 trillion. But on the time scales of eternity, the time it requires is unimportant. What's important is that it's inevitable. We can't test this afterlife, but we can and have tested cosmic inflation. So if cosmic inflation is true, you will live again. In fact, under cosmic inflation, you are destined to live an infinite number of times. Mechanism and the afterlife. Afterlife prediction, you will reincarnate. Mechanism took root in the 1600s as the laws of motion were worked out. The basic idea, the body is a machine, operating according to mechanical principles and following physical laws. René Descartes originated mechanism in his 1633 Treatise of Man. In the 20th century, the invention of the computer revived theory. After Alan Turing invented the computer in 1936, he was among the first to speculate on the question of whether machines could think. Today, mechanism is assumed in all fields of science, from physics and chemistry to biology and neuroscience. Mechanism is perhaps our most strongly confirmed of theories, as no violation of the laws of motion has ever been observed. Moreover, mechanism is confirmed by advances such as brain implants, artificial limbs and sense organs.
Electronic mind control research is not new. A scientific milestone in this area came in the 1960s when Dr. Jose Delgado demonstrated remote control over a charging bull. By connecting a radio antenna to electrodes inserted into the bull's brain, Delgado proved that the animal's aggressive impulses could be thwarted by electronically manipulating the bull's muscle reflexes.
Do you realize the fantastic possibilities if from the outside we could modify the inside? Could we give messages to the inside? But the beauty is that now we are not using electrodes.
In recent years, Delgado has shown that the behavior of monkeys can be altered using low-power, pulsating magnetic fields. But in these experiments, there were no antenna implants.
Any function in the brain, emotions, intellect, personality, well, could be perhaps modified by this non-invasive technology.
Delgado's research has so far been limited to animals. But in the Soviet Union, a radio frequency, or RF device, has been used for over 30 years to manipulate the moods of mental patients.
Mechanism predicts that the motion of everything, including animals and humans, can be described by simple mechanical laws. Since bodily motions are controlled by thoughts, then according to mechanism, the inner workings of our mind must also be mechanical. Drawing by René Descartes in Treatise of Man, 1633. Descartes viewed the bodies of animals and humans as sophisticated machines. This implies that consciousness itself is the result of the mechanical operation of a machine, in our case, the machinery of the brain. Today, this view is known variously as functionalism or computationalism.
René Descartes, Treatise on Man, published in 1633. I should like you to consider that these functions, including passion, memory, and imagination, follow from the mere arrangement of the machine's organs every bit as naturally as the movements of a clock or other automaton follow from the arrangement of its counterweights and wheels.
Alan Turing in Computing Machinery and Intelligence, 1950. I propose to consider the question, can machines think? If we wish to find such similarities, we should look rather for mathematical analogies of function.
In 1950, Turing envisioned a future where man-made thinking machines could do anything a human could do. Writing, we may hope that machines will eventually compete with men in all purely intellectual fields. The theory that the brain is a machine seems innocuous, yet it leads to a radical prediction. It predicts the possibility of reincarnation, that is, a mind surviving and continuing through another's body. Mechanism's predictions for the afterlife. If mechanism is right, then we can rebuild or replace any part of the brain. So long as the new part is functionally equivalent, the overall function and behavior of the machine is preserved.
Richard Feynman in What Do You Care What Other People Think? 1988. So what is this mind of ours? What are these atoms with consciousness? Last week's potatoes. That is what now can remember what was going on in my mind a year ago, a mind which has long ago been replaced. This is what it means when one discovers how long it takes for the atoms of the brain to be replaced by other atoms, to note that the thing which I call my individuality is only a pattern or dance. The atoms come into my brain, dance a dance, then go out. Always new atoms, but always doing the same dance, remembering what the dance was yesterday.
Mechanism even predicts that in principle, we could scan a person at an atomic scale and, using advanced technology, rebuild that same person at another location from a different pile of atoms. If mechanism is true, teletransporters could become a convenient form of transportation. So long as the patterns of a mind are restored, the person survives. It would not matter if the original atoms or new atoms are used. The recreated person is physically and mechanically identical. No physical test could distinguish them for identical atoms or indistinguishable. According to mechanism, we can survive the death, destruction, and even complete annihilation of our bodies, as we can be restored to life wherever and whenever the pattern of our mind is reformed.
John Norden Gan Airy, Professor of Philosophy. This led to the idea, much later popular among analytic philosophers of mind, that the mental is a set of functions that operate through the body. Such an approach supports the idea that there is a place for the self within nature, that a self, even one that exists over time in different bodies, need be not a supernatural phenomenon.
This mechanism implies the possibility of reincarnation. But how likely is it that an identical mind and body will be recreated elsewhere? Your brain is incredibly complex and is not apt to spontaneously appear out of nowhere. But your brain did not start this way. It began as a single cell. It arose from a state of zero complexity, containing no information, to become what it is now. A brain that is dying eventually reaches this same state of zero complexity. In the course of its decline, it can intersect and become identical with the state of a developing brain. It would have the same mechanical processes, patterns of behavior, and information content. A dying organism, in blue, declines and its brain complexity approaches zero. This state intersects with the state of a developing organism, in red. The result is a teletransportation. The brain dies in one location and is recreated in another location, with different material. The mind and person could thereby survive the death of their body. When the body dies, the mechanism of the body holding the spirit is gone and the spirit finds a new body sooner or later, perhaps immediately. The soul is thereby recovered, as something distinct from any particular physical body which can transcend the death of the body. There's only one way to be conscious of nothing. We might call this blank state the primordial state of being. It is the state we were in before we were born, and the state we return to after we die. Try and imagine what it will be like to go to sleep and never wake up. Think about that. Children, think about that. It's one of the great wonders of life. What will it be like to go to sleep and never wake up? And if you think long enough about that, something will happen. You will find out, among other things, that it will pose the next question to you. What was it like to wake up after having never gone to sleep? That was when you were born. Of course, this prediction of mechanism is untestable. Traveling through a low complexity state, as a senile or dying brain requires we lose all, or nearly all information about the previous life. Accordingly, there is no way to tell whether a newborn's conscious mind is a continuation of some previous being's consciousness. The Buddhist Wheel of Life depicts the perpetual cycle of reincarnation called samsara. The idea of reincarnation appears across cultures and times. It was expressed by ancient Greeks and Romans. It is found in the Kabbalah of Jewish mysticism as well as in Druid and Taoist philosophies. It is a tenet of many Eastern religions, including Hinduism, Buddhism, Jainism, and Sikhism. According to mechanism, the experience of death is something akin to reincarnation. We won't necessarily live as ourselves over and over again as cosmic inflation predicts. Instead, we can survive as other beings, some not necessarily human, in this world or others. So if mechanism is true, you will live again. You will survive death by reincarnating to experience the life of another being. The concordance model and the afterlife. Afterlife prediction, you have infinite incarnations. The concordance model, also known as the lambda-cold dark matter or CDM model, is the most widely accepted cosmological model. It is therefore called the standard model of cosmology. One assumption of this model is that the shape of the universe is flat. In other words, space has zero curvature. According to our best astronomical measurements, the curvature of space omega k equals 0.000 caret plus 0.005 minus 0.005 k equals 0.000 minus 0.005 plus 0.005. So as best we can tell, it is 0. 3 possibilities exist. 1. Space is positively curved. 2. Space is negatively curved. Or 3. Space is flat. But there is a surprising consequence of flat space. It implies space is infinite. Not just infinite empty space, but infinite and filled with infinite stuff, infinite galaxies, infinite stars, and infinite worlds. The curvature of space is the 3D equivalent of the 2D curvature of a sphere as surface. The surface of a small sphere, like a marble or a ping-pong ball, is highly curved. It is easy for us to tell it is round. But the larger the sphere, the flatter its surface becomes. A basketball or beach ball is less curved than a marble. As spheres grow to the size of planets, the surface starts to look flat. Now imagine the sphere kept growing until it was infinite in size. At that point, its curvature would be 0. Its surface would be perfectly flat. The same is true of the curvature of space. If space is flat, then space is infinite.
Measurements of temperature and polarization anisotropy in the cosmic microwave background, CMB, have played a major role in establishing and sharpening the standard CDM model of cosmology, a 6-parameter model based on a flat universe, dominated by a cosmological constant, and cold dark matter, CDM, with initial Gaussian, adiabatic fluctuations seeded by inflation. 9-year Wilkinson microwave anisotropy probe.
They say that the curvature of the universe is tightly constrained around zero. In other words, the most likely model is that the universe is flat. A flat universe would also be infinite, and their calculations are consistent with this too. MIT Technology Review.
But even the idea that the universe is infinite leads to bizarre and unintuitive consequences for the afterlife. The concordance model's predictions for the afterlife, if the concordance model is correct and space goes on forever, then it is not just space that is infinite, you become infinite. Does space go on forever? If it does, the implications for the afterlife are extraordinary. Within infinite space exist infinite occurrences of the Milky Way galaxy, infinite occurrences of our solar system, infinite occurrences of Earth, and even infinite occurrences of you, exactly as you are now.
The idea of such an alter ego seems strange and implausible, but it looks as if we will just have to live with it, because it is supported by astronomical observations. The simplest and most popular cosmological model today predicts that you have a twin in a galaxy about 10 to the 10⁻28 meters from here. This distance is so large that it is beyond astronomical, but that does not make your doppelganger any less real. The estimate is derived from elementary probability and does not even assume speculative modern physics, merely that space is infinite, or at least sufficiently large, in size and almost uniformly filled with matter, as observations indicate. In infinite space, even the most unlikely events must take place somewhere. Max Tegmark, cosmologist at MIT.
Infinite space implies you have infinite bodies throughout the universe. We each have unlimited physical incarnations. If some misfortune were to kill you here and now, say a meteorite crashing down on you, you would nevertheless survive. You would survive through the lives of your other exact duplicates on distant Earths, otherwise identical except there, no meteorite fell. Since you can't experience those Earths where you die, you only experience those parts of the universe where you survive. The implication, you can't be killed, at least not everywhere. There will always be another version of you elsewhere who lives on, perhaps one who experiences a miraculous cure, or other happenstance of fate. So while a doctor who examines a body can determine that body to be dead, no doctor can prove a person to be dead, not without proving that person has no other incarnations surviving elsewhere in reality. The sound or represents Brahman, the infinite reality. That Brahman is infinite, and this universe is infinite. The infinite proceeds from the infinite. Pingala Upanishad, c. 600 AD. Whether or not the universe is infinite is an age-old question. It dates back at least 2,600 years with the Greek idea of the apeiron. Some 2,300 years ago, the Greek philosopher Epicurus argued for the principle of plenitude, the idea that given infinite space and matter, there ought to be infinite worlds, some like ours, others different.
Furthermore, there are infinite worlds both like and unlike this world of ours. For the atoms being infinite in number, as was proved already, are borne on far out into space. For those atoms, which are of such nature that a world could be created out of them or made by them, have not been used up either on one world or on a limited number of worlds, nor again on all the worlds which are alike, or on those which are different from these. So that nowhere exists an obstacle to the infinite number of the worlds. Epicurus in Letter to Herodotus, c. 300 BC.
The idea of an infinite universe also appears in religious texts. It's found in the Indian religions of Hinduism, Buddhism, and Jainism, and in the Chinese philosophies of Confucianism and Taoism. In Abrahamic religions, the idea appears in Gnosticism, Baha'i faith, Mormonism, and in the writings of Christian and Islamic theologians.
It is established by evidence that there exists beyond the world a void without a terminal limit, and it is established as well by evidence that God Most High has power over all contingent beings. Therefore He the Most High has the power to create 1,000 worlds beyond this world. Fakhr al-Din al-Razi, 12th century Islamic theologian. Know thou of a truth that the worlds of God are countless in their number, and infinite in their range. None can reckon or comprehend them except God, the All-Knowing, the All-Wise. Baha'u'llah, founder of Baha'i faith, in Tablet of Vafa.
According to the concordance model, there are infinite worlds. Some like this one, others different. Therefore, should you die here, your life nevertheless continues elsewhere. right where it left off. So if the concordance model is true, you have infinite incarnations. Accordingly, from your own point of view, you survive any peril. Quantum mechanics and the afterlife. Afterlife prediction, you are subjectively immortal. Quantum mechanics started as a theory of quanta, light particles, but later it was realized its rules applied to all particle types. For the previous century, evidence favored the idea that light is a wave. New findings at the turn of the 20th century brought this into doubt. Max Planck's finding on black body radiation in 1899. Albert Einstein's account of the photoelectric effect in 1905. Niels Bohr's model of the atom in 1913. All three results suggested that light was made of particles, not waves. If light is a wave, it should bend around corners, just as sound waves do. It does. If light is a particle, it should be emitted and absorbed in bundles of energy. It is. It took nearly 2 decades for physicists to reconcile this. In 1925, Werner Heisenberg, Max Born, and Pascal Jordan developed a theory based on matrices. Later that year, Erwin Schrödinger developed an alternate formula based on a wave equation. Heisenberg's and Schrödinger's approaches gave the same answers. Later, John von Neumann proved the two formulas were equivalent. We now have an answer to the question of is light a particle or a wave. Light is made of particles, but the probable locations of these particles is governed by an equation similar to those describing waves. Today, quantum mechanics is thoroughly confirmed. It is responsible for the most accurate prediction in all of physics and is the basis of numerous technologies, including lasers, transistors, and LEDs. We couldn't have high-speed fiber optic networks, DVDs, flash memory, microprocessors, or flat-screen displays without these. But there is a disturbing consequence to the equations of quantum mechanics. Particles can be in multiple locations at once. Quantum computers speed up computations by exploiting the fact that particles can simultaneously be in multiple states at once. Image credit, IBM Research. Schrödinger was the first to realize his equation, interpreted literally, predicts an infinite number of unseen universes, where every experimental possibility is realized, a quantum multiverse. But he never published this idea. He mentioned it in a 1952 lecture, where he warned that what he was about to say might seem lunatic. His lunatic idea, when the Schrödinger equation seems to describe several different histories, they are not alternatives but all really happen simultaneously.
Here was an eminent physicist joking that he might be considered mad. Why? For claiming that his own equation, the very one for which we had won the Nobel Prize, might be true. David Deutsch, inventor of the quantum computer in The Beginning of Infinity.
The idea was not published until 5 years later. A graduate student at Princeton, Hugh Everett III, independently reached the same conclusion. He published it as his 1957 doctoral thesis.
The universal wave function must contain amplitudes for all possible worlds depending on all quantum mechanical possibilities in the past, and thus one is forced to believe in the equal reality of an infinity of possible worlds. Richard Feynman, who won the 1965 Nobel Prize in Physics for quantum electrodynamics.
In 1981, Richard Feynman was the first to have the idea of a quantum computer, a computer that exploits the resources in parallel universes to speed up calculations. In 1984, the physicist David Deutsch showed how to build one. Deutsch believes quantum computers can provide near irrefutable evidence of many worlds.
A theory of computation within any laws of physics is the theory of how you can use physical objects to represent abstract objects. Right. So you want to represent the integers, 1, 2, 3, and you can use physical objects like fingers to say that will be 1, that's called 2, that's called 3, and so on. And the computers are ways of instantiating abstract objects and their relationships in physical objects and their motion. So now, what happens with quantum computers is that we simply take the deepest physical theory we have, quantum theory, and we say, what kind of information processing does quantum theory in general allow, and what does it not allow? And that's the theory of quantum computation.
And when you do that, what do you find compared with a classical computer when you make this quantum computer? You find
you find a number of similarities, and we find the reasons why the Turing theory worked as well as it did, and then you find a number of dramatic differences between the quantum theory, quantum computers, and and classical computers. The one that's got the most attention is that for certain types of calculation, a quantum computer can perform it exponentially faster than any classical computer. So you could have, people haven't built quantum computers yet, but we hope that they soon will. And when a quantum computer is built, a small quantum computer with a few thousand qubits, that's the quantum analog of bits.
Compared to the billions of bits in our normal desktop computers or laptops.
or even our mobile phones.
Right.
In other words, a very, very weak, comparatively weak quantum computer could perform more computations simultaneously than could be performed by the entire visible universe if it was all made into computers. In fact, when I say more, that's an understatement. Exponentially more than that. But only for certain types of computation.
Since the universe as we see it lacks the computational resources to do the calculations, where are they being done? It can only be in other universes. Quantum computers share information with huge numbers of versions of themselves throughout the multiverse. David Deutsch.
Quantum computers are now a reality. You can sign up for free to run your own programs on quantum computers. That quantum computers exist forces us to confront the existence of alternate universes. If this prediction of multiple parallel histories is true, then we live in a reality where anything that can happen does happen. This not only affects life as we know it, but also the afterlife. Quantum mechanics predictions for the afterlife. Quantum mechanics implies the existence of unlimited alternate histories and universes. Within these universes are unlimited alternate versions of us, each living out every permutation of every possibility. One implication of this idea is a form of immortality. Hugh Everett, who originated the many worlds idea, was the first to introduce the concept of quantum immortality, the idea that because we only perceive branches of the Schrödinger equation where we survive, it is impossible to die from one's own point of view. In a discussion with his employee Keith Lynch, also a trained physicist, Lynch recounts that Everett raised the question of whether it made sense for a believer in many worlds to play high-stakes Russian roulette as, in some universe, a version of you is bound to win.
Everett firmly believed that his many worlds theory guaranteed him immortality. His consciousness, he argued, is bound at each branching to follow whatever path does not lead to death, and so on ad infinitum. Keith Lynch.
In the 1980s, others realized this implication of quantum mechanics.
For an example to illustrate this lack of uniqueness, we might return to the double-slit experiment and suppose the right-hand detector is attached to a gun which shoots and kills me if it records a particle. Then after one particle had passed through the experiment, the wave function would contain a piece with me alive and a piece with me dead. One, I, would certainly be alive, so we appear to have a sort of Russian roulette, in which we cannot really lose. Indeed, since all aging or decaying processes are presumably quantum mechanical in nature, there is always a small part of the wave function in which they will not have occurred. Thus, to be completely fanciful, immortality is guaranteed. I will always be alive in the only part of the wave function of which I am aware. Ewan J. Squires in The Mystery of the Quantum World, 1986.
The concept was independently described by roboticist Hans Moravec in his 1987 book Mind Children, and also by the logician Bruno Marchal in his 1988 paper Informatique théorique et philosophie de l'esprit. We can only experience the branches where we survive. Accordingly, everyone is subjectively, from their viewpoint, immortal. Whenever, in some particular history, your life ends, there is always some other history in the multiverse, where your life continues. In our branch, Hugh Everett died in 1982 at age 51. But if his thesis is right, there are other branches where he is alive to this day. Even unlikely events, such as quantum tunneling to a younger age, will for some of our lucky selves forestall the decline of old age. Everett's daughter, Liz Everett, took her life in 1996. In her note, she expressed hope of meeting her father in a parallel universe. It is especially tragic when a young person dies. There is so much unrealized potential, so many experiences never had. Under quantum mechanics, the potential is not unrealized, only realized elsewhere in reality, in other histories of the multiverse. Mahavai Yu. Sleeping in the causal ocean emanating millions of universes with each breath. Even though over a period of time I might count all the atoms of the universe, I could not count all of my opulences which I manifest within innumerable universes. Bhagavata Purana 11.16.39. Image credit, Krishna.com. The idea of an infinite reality, filled with infinite universes, can be found in many religions. If the quantum multiverse is real, then we never experience death. Further, one's life is not constrained to a single path. Rather, each life branches out to explore every possibility. We experience all of them, every road not taken. If quantum mechanics is true, there are branches of history in which you were never born, or died at a younger age. But despite the opinions of people in those branches, you are here, alive and well. Those who have died from our perspective feel the same, from the position of whichever branches they survive in. If quantum mechanics is true, you are subjectively immortal. Accordingly, from your own point of view, you will live forever. Thank you for listening to Is There Life After Death? Part 2 will be up soon. We hope you can join Citizen ZTV. Wishes to thank everyone. God bless you all.